Alright guys, so there's a new Halloween movie out this year that I was really high hoping that it would be really good because I think the world needs more Halloween movies, and that is The Witches, which is a book written by Roald Dahl and also a movie from, I believe, 1990 with, what's the name of that lead actress? Somebody
Olivia Spencer!
Yeah, she was in the Addams Family, right?
Yeah, I think she played Morticia.
Really?
From the 80s, the 90s version, not from the new version.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
It's about a boy who, his parents die, and he moves into a house with his grandma, and then there's witches everywhere. And I remember reading this book as a kid. It's by the same author as Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory, Matilda, Big Friendly Giant, any of the magical books that you grew up with as a kid. And if you know anything about Roald Dahl, he tends to do these whimsical stories that have just these terrible dark beginnings, and this one was no exception. So the beginning of this movie, and we won't go into spoilers, but the first 10 minutes is just so dark and sad, and then it picks up from there. And I've never seen a movie so perfectly well done in the first 20 minutes take a downward turn so fast. I absolutely loved the first 20 minutes. I know, George, you were texting me about the first 10 minutes being super emotional for you.
Yeah.
You really loved it. You said you could watch the first 20 minutes on a loop. And then after that, there's really not much to watch. There's really not a lot going on in this movie. So I was disappointed because I wanted to like it so badly, and it had so much potential. It's directed by Robert Zemeckis, who did Back to the Future, one of my favorite movies of all time.
Forrest Gump. Polar Express with Tom Hanks.
The man can do no wrong.
Castaway.
And you can see his influence in this movie and how much effort and love, and somebody really loved the books and really wanted to make this into a beautiful movie. So it's really unfortunate from my perspective that as soon as the little boy who plays the main character, as soon as he turns into a mouse, this movie goes way downhill, way fast. And
That's when the movie picks up for me.
What?
I'll tell you why.
You're kidding. Tell me why.
No, finish your review. I'll do mine.
Well, that's my review. I think the second that they took the little boy off screen and Octavia Spencer's part kind of diminishes, the magic of this movie really came from Octavia Spencer and the boy playing her grandson, and how they interacted and how magical and whimsical they were together. And if it had been them fighting off the Anne Hathaway witch for an hour and a half, I would be so sold on this movie. But instead, and this isn't a spoiler, it's in the trailer, he gets turned into a mouse. His little friend gets turned into a mouse. And it goes from being a really kind of creepy, kind of scary-ish film that you probably wouldn't show to anyone under 12 years old, so suddenly it becomes like Barney the Dinosaur stupid.
I would totally. I would show 10-year-old kids this movie. It's awesome.
I think this would scare the crap out of them.
That's exactly why they should watch it.
Well,
the ending was just like,
it would be too scary for most little kids, but then the last hour and a half of this film is so young that teenagers will not watch it. I was bored by it, and they don't know who their audience is. I watched this one with a friend, and the entire time we kept looking at each other going, who is the audience for this movie? Is it
apparently
teenagers?
Me.
Is it adults? Is it people that grew up with the story? Now, did you grow up with the books?
No.
Did you grow up with the 1980s movie?
I've only seen... that's spoiler. I can't talk about it.
Have you seen the trailer for the 1980s movie?
Yeah.
Okay, well, we could not figure out who this movie was for. I don't think they knew who it was for. I just wish that they had made the necessary changes in order to put that little boy back on screen more often, because that would have saved the movie.
That would have, yeah.
It would, yeah.
George, you can go next.
I don't know who that kid is, but he was so talented.
Oh, what's your final rating?
final rating,
skip it, see it.
I think the only kids that are gonna like this is between ages like 12 to 13, maybe 14. It's gonna hit that, like, not too scary for them, but also still like some of the little kid stuff in it won't be too babyish for them. But anything outside of that age range, you're either gonna scare them or bore them. So if you grew up with the books and you really love it, then maybe it's for you. And if you want to get a good experience out of this movie, watch the first 20 minutes, and then as soon as that kid turns into a mouse, you can just go ahead and turn that right off.
That's your review. George,
All right.
You can go next.
All right. Well, let me organize my thoughts for a second here. I would have to say I really did like Anne Hathaway in it. That was.
She's good in everything.
She is.
She can do no wrong.
She did a fantastic job. It was absolutely great. I think the reason why I actually kind of liked when she had like that wider face in it.
Yeah.
Because first off, like just the scar lines, I didn't like those. I didn't like those. I preferred when she used her full face.
Yeah.
And because otherwise it reminded me too much of Joker, and she wasn't a good version of the Joker.
Oh.
And anyways, also one other reason was because her voice and like the face that she had reminded me of Venom, and I am like a huge Venom fan for some reason. So I really actually liked it, which doesn't make logical sense, but
It did look
I
like
liked it.
Venom. It did.
Yeah, and so I thought that was super cool, and I really liked the way they did like you said, the first 20 minutes. It was really spooky. Like it actually had me like kind of on edge. Like, oh man, this looks like it could be really interesting.
Yeah.
Then suddenly it takes a turn.
Mm-hmm.
When he turns into a mouse, it
gone.
goes back. It goes back to basically what the 80s movie was, which is just terribly cheesy. And I'm like, this is not what I was hoping for.
Because the character is interesting on his own. In a book, you can turn him into a mouse, and he's still the same character. But if you turn him into a mouse on screen, it completely changes his character.
Yeah. And you could actually even see that in the acting.
Mm-hmm.
Like with Olivia Spencer.
Yeah. Yeah, wasn't...
Her reactions after he was a mouse were much different than when he was a boy.
Right.
Well, that's because he's not actually there.
Exactly. That's
They're doing a tennis ball.
Exactly. But that's part of the problem with it.
Yeah, I mean,
it's like her reactions, like her acting when he was there
on screen
was amazing.
So good.
It was on point. I absolutely loved every second of it.
Every second.
But then once he turned into a mouse, he wasn't there, so it was much harder to act.
Yep.
And like
she did a fine job, though.
She did a good job. Yeah.
Yeah,
she did basically as good as Anne Hathaway did.
She did as good as you could talking to a tennis ball.
Exactly. Exactly.
It's a tennis ball. You're not. Yep. There's nothing to talk back to you and react back to you, except this animatronic mouse that's like not doing anything for me as the audience.
Exactly.
So what's your final rating?
If you have HBO already, then you could watch this.
Yeah.
It would probably be kind of fun to watch.
Mm-hmm.
It was fun to watch, and I'm sure some kids would get some laughs out of it, which would be good. But
if your kids have a really high tolerance for like weird, scary imagery, then they're probably gonna like this.
Yeah.
But I mean, high tolerance.
Well, I don't know if I would say high. I would say like moderate.
Medium.
Because this wasn't like the scariest kids movie I've ever seen.
No.
But it was moderately scary.
Yeah.
At the start, and then at the end, it just completely flopped.
Yeah.
All right. So mine's going to be a little bit of a shock, but I give this movie a golden popcorn. That's right. You heard it, folks. This is my golden popcorn review, which only comes out a few times a year. I don't actually know when was the last time I gave a golden popcorn. Oh, Hamilton. I gave golden popcorn to Hamilton.
I think so, yeah.
And that was worth it. First of all, like my friend Brian came over, and sometimes you're in a mood for like a really silly it just worked for me because I loved Octavia Spencer. I loved this little kid. I love when she comes in and starts singing and dancing, and he's just like depressed, just sitting there. And all of that stuff was just really fun.
All of that is perfect. All of that is so well done. I loved every second of that.
But eventually it came to a point, I'm like, okay, I wanna see some Halloween stuff. So I was getting irritated by all the family stuff. I was looking for, like, I was in the mood to watch something Halloween-y, you know, like something just, and I did not know where this movie was gonna go because I haven't seen the trailers. I remember watching the original like in 3rd grade, but the only part I remembered was a bunch of mice running around and these witches in a hotel, but it didn't really like stuck with me. I'm like, I think I sort of remember that. I didn't know anything about this book. I didn't know that he wrote Charlie and the Chocolate Factory and this series. Like they're all sequels and all that stuff. So you know, for me it was like, oh wow, where is this going? What is happening here? I loved this little fat chubby kid.
Yeah.
That his hands are always dirty, and his mom's like, look at you, and she just grabs him and it's like, hello, I was like, hey, this is my new friend, so and so. I was like, oh, look at your hands. Just grabs him like, run. I died.
When he first came on screen, I said, oh, it's Augustus Gloop.
Oh yeah, we said that too.
Yeah.
It is something. And then Anne Hathaway comes in with her army of like bad hair days. And I recognize the hotel manager because Devil Wears Prada is one of my all-time favorite movies. I used to love watching Devil Wears Prada. It still is.
Is that what she was in?
Well, they were both in it. The hotel manager was married to Meryl Streep's character, and she was she was working for Emily Blunt's in it too.
Yeah.
Long story short, like they were just, I love seeing them together, and they just kind of switched roles because he was kind of a jerk, and Anne Hathaway was like this innocent young girl. But here, Anne Hathaway is like this crazy person lady who has powers and a witch, and he's kind of like trying to please her, but like Anne Hathaway can't stand her. All that stuff was really great. I loved like I didn't know what to expect, but for a good 15 minutes, I just thought it was brilliant, and it was they take this room,
but it's only 15 minutes.
No, I loved the whole movie. The first 15 minutes had a great opening with Octavia Spencer and this boy. Okay. Then the hotel had all the witches sitting down. The doors are locked. He's stuck in there watching them.
That part was still good.
Oh my god, it was great. And like Anne Hathaway is just throwing tables and chairs and making all this noise. The little like fat boy comes in and they're like all holding their nose because they don't like the smell of children. And they're like, oh my god, give him the candy already so like he can turn into a mouse. And you know, and I was just like, oh my god, and they're like demons who pretend to be witches. They're not even witches. Like they're just flying around doing all kinds of stuff. And it was just like, it's so funny. I could not stop laughing. And my favorite part, I'm sorry if this is spoiling for you, either you're watching this or you're not. They did a good job with the non-spoiler stuff. I'm just gonna go with my thing. They're like sitting there under the table or like this like furnace area or something. They're like under the vent. Yeah. And like the fat kid gets turned into a mouse, and his little mouse friend goes like, don't worry, I got him. You can talk. And I just like lost it. I thought it was so funny. Oh my gosh. And he's like dragging him to the table, and they're all trying to like, you know, like trying to stop him. And it was, either that works for you or doesn't. I had a blast. My friend Brenna was over. We got a little tipsy, so we were having more fun.
Oh, that makes more sense.
And it was just really funny. And like, you know, I love the part where Octavia Spencer's like, oh, you gotta go talk to your parents. You know, you gotta.
Okay, that was funny.
Oh my god, that was hilarious. And she's like, what is that? Is that a mouse? Is that a mice? What are you doing? And then she looks at him and goes like, why didn't you say anything? And he goes, my dad told me never to talk with my mouth full. I lost it. I thought the movie is so funny. The little like thing where like she's like knitting like Mission Impossible with mice. Like she's trying to put him down and pull him up, and there's all this back and forth going on. And the guy comes in like during that scene, and he's like, you know, I found this little cage for your cat.
That was a good little comical part right there.
And then she's like, Anne Hathaway is like, I know you. It's like, I don't, you're from the lobby? Like, I don't know what you're talking about. It's like, no, I remember you. And then at the dinner, Anne Hathaway's like about to take the spoon of soup, and like she's just like, I remember you. You were the little pigtail girl with the so and so and so. And he's like, you're the one who turned my friend into a chicken or rooster. And he's like, yes. It's like, you're responsible. And then like all the witches are eating the soup, and they just start exploding. Like, just explosion of witches getting, like, balloon style and just jumping around. Oh, my God. And then, like, this movie is so funny. Like, it is so out there, and it just completely worked for me. And I swear, like, I could not stop laughing. Like, the part where, like, she's in their room, and, like, they try to make up this crazy plan to, like, get shot up, and then the bottle goes into Anne Hathaway's mouth or whatever, and like she drinks the whole bottle, and then like they release the cat. Oh my God, this movie is so silly. It's so funny. Everyone is just like overacting it up, and it just worked for me, man. And I even like little Chris Rock's. Oh my God, Chris Rock had such a good opening. He was like, let me tell you, witches! And he just like points his finger and just like does all the little things. But the intro, take it seriously. Witches are real! And then just like...
That part was great. I love the fact that they actually had Chris Rock at the start narrating it. That was so good.
Well, yeah, like, they're making sequels, so Chris Rock, of course, will have a bigger part because the book has series.
So they're going to have a sequel?
Yeah, and I can't wait because I really like this movie.
I think the sequels will probably be pretty good.
I hope so too. Does he ever turn back into a child?
No, but they do go around the world hunting witches though. Or actually they might, I don't know.
I hope he turns back into a kid because they need it. They need it desperately.
It's wonderful. The hotel looked amazing.
Yeah.
The effects surprisingly didn't look as bad as I thought they were going to be.
The
effects
are great.
Like the effects look really good, like while I was watching, I'm like, oh, this was made to be seen in 3D, Dolby.
I think like one of the only things was like the way Anne Hathaway's arm moved or something. When she went to throw something. I think that was the only thing I noticed that was off. But everything else looked really good.
Olivia Spencer had this southern drawl, and everything was like this like southern metaphor for something. And I thought it was just brilliant. I loved it. Anne Hathaway, like, she's always saying stuff in like this weird, like southern weird accent too at the same time.
Was it British?
Is it British? I don't know. I couldn't tell.
It was a British accent.
But it was some sort of accent. Like when she was like, yes, we are here to say. It's like, what do you do?
German. There we go.
Oh, was it German? Okay, it's like,
German.
And what do you do with the mice when you find them? We call a exterminator. Yes, you exterminate them. And it's like, no. We call an exterminator. It's like, I don't know. It worked for me. I thought it was hilarious. I was not bored, not one bit. Anne Hathaway hamming it up. Olivia Spencer hamming it up. Like, it is a giant cartoon. And it is a nice switch to go from, like, Lovecraft, which is kind of like serious fantasy. Well, this is a silly Halloween movie with kids. I mean, I don't know why it didn't work for you guys. For me, like, I was sold. Like, it was just funny, man. The ending, like, we couldn't stop laughing. Like, Olivia Spencer driving around the country or the world with, like, different posters with the mice. Oh my God,
those are
so
pretty good.
Funny. They're so funny. Yeah, I love this. I love this movie. I learned a little bit about, what's the author's name?
Roald Dahl.
Roald Dahl is so really fascinating. His wife is still alive, and she's in a, like,
his story is insane. You won't even believe it.
Yeah, so like I was looking up, like I always do, like a little bit, like I did for Lovecraft. I wanted to know more about the book and the movie differences, and you know I kind of did the same thing here. And then again, it had to do with racism. So did you know that Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, Charlie was black, and the BBC and American Hollywood changed him to white.
I know.
I brought
that up like a month or two ago.
Oh, you did?
Yeah, I did. And you guys were like, oh yeah.
I read the book. He wasn't specified as black. So
No, that's the change.
I think this, but no, I read the original book.
No, he wrote the book, then the publisher and BBC changed it to a white kid.
Oh.
Yeah. And then also, he wrote, and he was, like, if you watch the 80s movie, the kid is not black, he's white, right?
Mm-hmm.
But in that book, too, he's black. So he's actually, he wrote these movies to be like a fairy tale for black kids and black people. Kind of like white kids have Cinderella, Sleeping Beauty. Learned a lot. His wife said, like, one of his things that really hurt him the most was that he never got to really share his vision for the book that he was writing, and it was for the characters of black kids who were being oppressed. I just really like a weird like rabbit hole I went through reading all that stuff, and she's like, I'm really sad he wasn't alive to see one of his works where the hero kid is black. That's and like cool. Something like this. Just really heartwarming. Like Olivia Spencer is absolutely phenomenal in this. You know, Anne Hathaway is just having a blast. I can only imagine, and like she'll do the weird like accent where she'll play like the German, but then she has this weird demon voice, but she does it so funny.
I love
that.
I can't stand it, but I actually like the demon voice.
Yeah, it was
terrible.
So good. I really enjoyed. I mean, the visuals are over the top. Like I love when like even in the past, like her, you know, activists. I was a girl, and she used to lollylag. And she was lollagagging or something like that.
Lollygagging.
Lollygagging.
Yeah, they actually use the word lollygagging, which I like. Which I never hear it anywhere else. But I grew up with that as a kid, so I love it.
It's so funny. Her friend gets turned into a rooster, and then her mom comes out and is like, "It's a rooster, but where's the girl go?" And I just thought it was so funny.
Before we get off the topic of Roald Dahl, his story is absolutely crazy. There is a episode of Drunk History that you all need to go watch right now that will tell you all about how Roald Dahl was actually, before he ever became a children's book author, a spy for the British government. And he came over to the U.S. as a spy, and he had all this secret intelligence stuff that he did, and he would write articles, and he would write all these journals, and he became such a good writer through all of these secret spy narratives that he was writing that when he retired, he decided to write kids' books, and for some reason, that's what he's known for, instead of all of this secret agent spy work that he did for America.
And I'm sure that's exactly how he wants to be remembered, not as a spy, but as a book writer.
Right, exactly.
I'm sure that's not that shocking. No, I mean, again, like, either it's gonna work for you, or it's not. I mean, it worked for me. I really enjoyed it. I had a blast. I never was bored. I was bored at one point.
Which part?
Like the part where like they're putting up mouse traps in the room.
Yeah, I was bored for
that was the only,
a good point.
That's like a 5-10 minutes for me. But that didn't really affect the whole movie. Everything. I mean, the witches getting turned into little mices is just stunning.
Well,
like, absolutely hilarious.
They basically turned into rats. Is what happened.
Right. And it's just like I just. It was so over the top. Have you seen Kingsman?
Yes.
You know when
they're
like...
I remember. I know the scene.
Either
the
you
scene where
like that...
Where everybody's heads are just blowing up.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep. Like it was just...
It was that kind of a moment, yeah.
That type of style and storytelling does wonders for my brain. It gets very pleased.
That's why I would have thought you would have liked Midsummer.
Yeah.
Because it seems very similar.
But Kingsman is so cartoony that I don't take the blood and the violence seriously.
Oh, whereas Midsummer was more drama style?
Yeah. Oh. I hate that stuff because, like, if you make me believe these characters are, like, a human story, they're humans and they're not... Like, the Lovecraft makes me feel like these people aren't real. It's just so over the top that it's just, like, this, you know, over the top thing where I can kind of shut my brain off. So, you know, like, I don't know what else to say. I think if you have kids... If you have a family and you're looking for a weird, silly Tim Burton... I don't like Tim Burton, but I like this movie. That tells you everything. About me, anyway, at least. I don't know about these guys. I don't like Tim Burton's style, but when somebody else besides Tim Burton do it, I appreciate it. So, that's my review of Golden Popcorn. You guys got anything else to add?
I really wish they had brought that boy back at the end. But
Me too.
but if there are future movies, then let's hope that he comes back at some point then.
Kudos. I don't know who that little boy is, but he is adorable and a fantastic actor.
Absolutely.
Ooh. We're so glad that you're here. Thank you for watching. We are taking extra precautions today because Had's got the sniffles. Alright, so we're going to talk about a show called Lovecraft Country. This is an HBO original.
Yeah, so this is not just a TV show that HBO premiered. It is a book series written by a Seattle person who lives in Seattle. They have this series that they created. Surprisingly, I learned that the person who wrote this book is white. When he's talking more about racism, but it is fantasy, so it doesn't have to be like historically accurate. It is but you know, he wanted to make a show that takes place during the segregation, and he kind of did his own thing, and he set up this world. And you know, as the show goes on, it's not just America. You learn other places in the world and other things going on. There's a lot of sci-fi. There's a lot of mythology from Asia. There's a lot of like Lovecraft stuff that happens in the book. That Lovecraft, the original, he wrote Cthulhu and all the other books about that series. Those monsters show up here. It breaks down history in a very interesting way. I guess his whole goal was to talk about, the racist people during segregation and how that, there was this war going on in America at the time, and he kind of included monsters and things like that. And it's a fascinating adult show. That's what I can say. Like, very much mature, rated R, 16 years old or up, I would say. If you like learning about history and segregation, and you like those type, like Django Unchained is one of my favorite movies, Quentin Tarantino. But it's not a true story. It's just this fantasy about these black slaves who try to get freedom by killing their slave owners. I loved it. That stuff is great. Or if you watched Inglourious Bastards, where the Americans find Hitler and basically torture him and kill him at the end, even though that's not historically accurate. Or Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, where they murder the Mason family, which didn't happen. If you like history being changed around in this weird way, if you like that stuff and it doesn't bother you that history is being changed, I think you'll really enjoy this show. I sometimes like it, and I sometimes don't. So Once Upon a Time, it totally worked for me. I love that ending. The Mason family got what they deserve. They Brad Pitt and Leo just went bananas on them, and the dog did too, and it was just crazy, and I loved it. But then in Inglourious Bastards, I felt offended because I'm like, Hitler didn't die that way, and as good as that sounds, to see them, people are, well, it is kind of cool to see Hitler get murdered by the American soldiers or whatever. Mm-hmm. Yeah, but it just didn't work for me. I didn't like it, but I liked it in Django, and I liked it here. It's enough where I didn't know I wanted to see a bunch of people who are white supremacists get eaten by monsters every other episode.
If I recall, it wasn't even actually the American soldiers that did it. I thought it was the French.
Was it?
Yeah.
I can't remember the movie, but somebody did it. It was Brad Pitt.
The owner of the theater.
No, it was Brad Pitt. They took the machine guns, and shot Hitler. And then blew up but the French lady did blow up the building, but right before that, Brad Pitt and the gang, shot Hitler in the face, multiple times with a machine gun.
Oh, I didn't remember that.
Again, a lot of people loved it, and if it works for you, it works for you. For me, it didn't work for me. But it worked for me in Django. It worked for me in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. And, monsters getting eaten, monsters eating white supremacists, and, KKK, it didn't bother me. So again, you're changing history a lot. You're kind of taking what's history taking place, but also making it in a very, very fantastical kind of an element to it. I did learn a lot more about the book than I thought I was going to. There's a whole series, and we can talk about what's happening the next season and where the story goes. But there's a lot. There's Bible. There's Adam and Eve story. There's a cult story. There's a white supremacist. There's stuff happening with communists and like
there is
communist
a lot to talk about.
It's very well put together and like a lot more bigger than I was expecting this show to be.
Yes, I will say that. I was surprised at how many set pieces there are.
Yeah.
Every
and it's beautiful.
It's gorgeous to look at.
Yeah.
You could play this one on mute and it would be fun to watch.
That's true.
Yeah.
Now, there are a couple episodes I didn't like, and I'll kind of get into that a little bit in our spoiler review.
Mm-hmm.
But overall, if you like Lovecraft, if you like history kind of being worked around to be more fantasy-based and not set in reality, even though it's a story that actually happened, I think you'll really enjoy it. It pushes your buttons and like kind of makes you feel certain things that you didn't know you were going to feel, like anger or frustration or all these characters are not heroes, they all have issues. And even when you're rooting for the main character, he has some deep dark secrets about the things he did that were just, nobody in the show is good. And I love that. Like, they're humans, but they're not good people.
What about Letitia? Is she good?
Well, let's just hold on the spoiler review.
No.
She's not?
And no, she's not. Nobody in the show is good.
Yeah, that's true.
Except for the mom. The mom was good. Yeah, she was good.
She's good, yeah.
But besides that, you're not really watching. It is very adult. Like George said it earlier. This is a very adult show, and it 100% is a very adult show. But I like anti-heroes. Like I just started watching The Boys, and I love it.
Yes.
Because I like stories
awesome.
of people who are broken, who mess up, but they also try to do good or try to do something right. But they're not like Jesus-like characters. They're just human beings. Who are just, you sometimes root for them, and other times you're like, oh, I don't feel right with this, that's uncomfortable, I don't want to see that, this irks me, and if you like that stuff, if you like more human stories with people being flaws, but trying to do good, I think you'll really enjoy it. And there's a lot of, every episode starts with, a saying from, Martin Luther King Jr. time and these black people and what they think and feel. When that stuff happens, I'm really sold about that one particular story. This isn't spoiler, but there's a point when the main character's sister talks about her anger and how she feels about racism and how she feels as a black woman, and she's talking to this white lady character, and she's just kind of releasing her humanity. It's not something you want to hear or see, but when that stuff hits, it hits really well. But the monster stuff, surprisingly, doesn't hit as well as the other stuff. Like the drama stuff, the story of the characters are so much better than the monster stuff. Which is weird to think, because it's called Lovecraft Country. I was expecting more monsters, but what I got was more drama and character stuff. And I love that stuff anyway, so that worked. But if you enjoy both, I think you'll appreciate both. But I don't know anyone that actually liked this show as much as the monster stuff. So, I don't know. I'd give this show, I don't think it's for everyone, because it is very mature, and it's a different, unique style. If anything I said about the show actually interests you, you should check it out. But, this show is really made for a certain audience and group of people. I would not recommend Once Upon a Time for everybody. There's a very small group of people that I think would love Once Upon a Time. Same thing with Inglourious Bastards, Django Unchained, 50 other. This is not for everybody. This is a very mature show, very adult show. I appreciated it. I love the history. I can't wait to talk more about it in the spoilers. Whoever wants to go next, you can. That's my review.
Are you going to go next? You're going to me too?
Yeah, so I have very mixed feelings on this show, and it's also probably the hardest show I've ever had to review because every episode is basically its own movie.
Oh, you're right.
Yeah.
That's so true.
And there's no two episodes alike, and they all have different characters and different plots. Mm-hmm. Not quite to the extent of something like Black Mirror, but there is a through plot line. I love Black Mirror.
I made it through the first episode. I still haven't.
Oh, you stopped at the worst episode. He told you not to do that.
I told you not to.
I just don't have time.
I love that show, but that was the worst episode to start at.
Well, drop a comment down below.
Episode.
No, I mean I liked it.
It's the worst
but
one.
It is the worst.
It is the worst one.
It is funny as hell though.
Oh
and
yeah,
it's like pigs government, Senate. You know, just it's weird, but it reminded me of The Gentleman.
Oh.
Yeah.
But it is the worst episode. I agree with Shannon.
So, drop a comment down below and tell us that you want to see George do a review of Black Mirror so that he has to watch the rest of the show and find out how good it actually is.
I think that George, that show is geared towards you. If any show was.
Yeah, you would love it. But you gotta try episode 2. Anyway, so Lovecraft Country does have more through lines as opposed to something like Black Mirror. It has a storyline that follows all the way through. If you can follow it, which I could not, I was completely lost, and I intentionally did not watch. There's a lot of YouTube videos like the ending explained and this episode explained. Did not watch those because I wanted to come into this review just having seen the show. I don't like it when a show is so confusing that I have to watch another show to explain the first show. No, thank you. Too much.
I love it. I think that's why we both like Tenet.
I hated Tenet.
Yeah.
So,
I love Tenet because I didn't need it explained. But it was complicated enough that I had to think it out.
Yeah,
Yeah, this was too much thinking for me. Now, on the other hand, the show is visually stunning. This is probably one of the most beautiful shows I've ever seen. It's on the level of something like Lost in Space, or something like Interstellar, where you're being thrown a new set piece, a new time period, a new visual, every 15 minutes.
That's so true. Wow, you have a better review than me. That's awesome.
From Fahad's lips to God's ears.
No, you're right. No, you're right. I just never really thought of it that way, but you are 100% correct. That is very true. You
could put this show on mute. Just have it on as your screensaver, and you'd have a great experience with the show. I don't recommend turning the sound on because you're going to be completely confused by everything. So every set piece, every car, every piece of clothing, every piece of furniture, everything, the detail is tremendously done so well. There's nothing that I would change visually except that it is very gory. It jerks you around a lot because it goes from these beautiful set pieces and time period pieces and other countries and other planets and other dimensions, and then you're thrown pretty quickly into this person's skin is ripping off of their body and they're molting and it's disgusting and gross and people are dying left and right, and there's no warning as to when this will happen. So if you're easily disturbed by blood or fake blood or anything like that, this is not the show for you. Yeah, this I think is geared towards like people who love horror. This is definitely a horror movie. It's unfortunate that it is because I think it could have been a really fantastic fantasy franchise. I think that... And I'm glad it's not, because I haven't seen enough fantasy. Sometimes there's just not... You gotta understand, like, H.P. Lovecraft and this type of show doesn't really come out anymore. Or, like, Walking Dead, okay, sure. But, like, besides that, like, there's not really a big genre that is open to something like this. We just don't have enough TV shows with this kind of... Like a sci-fi? Like a sci-fi horror. Like, you know, Walking Dead is, like, very bloody, gory, nasty. Characters are doing evil things, but they're also murdering zombies, but they're also doing bad things, even though... I don't know if you've ever seen The Walking Dead. I have a few episodes. I would have preferred that this just be a straight sci-fi, without the blood and gore. I don't mind blood and gore, but this was over the top. And that's why I think I loved it.
I did like the blood and gore.
Yeah.
Quite a bit in it.
It really is. No, you're right. It is a target. It's targeted towards people like me who do like... I don't like Midsummer. I don't like psychological... Oh, see, I love psychological horror. But this is a cartoon to me now. It's not, like, serious. The way... It's so over-the-top horror it's kind that of I appreciate it. Like Rick and Morty or something. Yeah.
That's very true.
Yeah. So
of
for
course,
me...
Of course I love Rick and Morty in this. No.
Yeah, like, I prefer this over Midsummer. Because Midsummer is... Like, humans are more creepy to me than monsters. Because human psychology just... like, just when humans do something very messed up, it just really, like, stays with me. Like, it actually makes me feel like it's evil and wrong. Maybe because, I don't know why, I just feel like psychological thrillers or, like, those weird horror movies that are like that, it just shows me the really dark side of what humanity is. But with this, I can kind of just turn off, like, my brain. Like, okay, not every white person is a racist, but it's a fantasy cartoon. Exactly. Not every black person is being subjugated to racism, even though it did happen. It's a very, like, over-the-top, like, story of, like...
A lot of stereotypes.
Like, cults, like, just, it's just so over-the-top that I don't have to take it personally like it's offending me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But, like, Midsommar personally offended me. I was like, I can't believe that village did that. What was that girl thinking? Like, how could she do that? Like, I was mad. Because, like, human drama affects me more than, like, horror does, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and like you said, this show, George and I were talking about this, there's not a single nice white person in the entire show. Every white person is a stereotypic, hateful, evil, racist bigot, and every black person is an oppressed victim.
Yeah, it's like
It is very cartoonish, but it's also very realistic at the same time. So, I was talking to one of my friends who was watching an episode with me, and I was saying, you know, I would be upset that this is doing a terrible job of stereotyping people and not portraying people right. But there's also, like, a girl turning into a butterfly. So, like, that's not real either. So I can't really take this too seriously.
Yeah. Like, I don't think anybody, like, a lot of my friends who did see it, black and white, they were like, wow, this is way too over the top. Like, not every white
Good.
person.
I'm glad that they said that.
But, you know, it is a over the top fantasy element that I really enjoyed because because it's so over the top that they're kind of winking at the audience, like, we know it's not actually like this.
Yeah.
So that you're like, yeah, you're right. Like, you know, because the writer's white. The guy who wrote the book is white. And, like, there's some cool things that I learned about the second season in the book that we can get into later. But, you know, it is not I would rather watch this than Midsommar. I can't stand Midsommar.
Oh, I love
Midsommar was great.
I would watch that again right now.
But see, that's the thing. Midsommar offended me.
There's societies like that.
No, I know, but that's why the human drama to that level where it's realistic like that, like, it just makes me want to hate humanity.
But there were a lot of very real moments in this, though.
There were, but I didn't get offended because my mind was already like, this is so over the top. I don't take any of this. I mean, you got people like jumping dimensions and
giant floating space octopus and
you got this weird like cult story where it's like apocalyptic in the second episode and like this guy believes he's the first Adam. Like, it's so bonkers that it doesn't personally.
It's a different dimension. It takes place in a different alternate reality.
Yeah, like, it's not. These people aren't real. These people are just like every white person is so over the top racist, and every black person is just so over the top. Like, it's just like to an extreme level. Then I can turn off my brain because there's no way anybody can watch this and be like, this is a bad message, because it's not a message at all. It's just. It's like you said, Rick and Morty, like this weird, like...
You know what it reminded me of is in God's Not Dead, when every single atheist is a horrible, evil person, and every single Christian is a saint.
I'm still mad at my friend's mom for making me go see that movie.
I'm still mad at my youth group for making me see that movie.
It's like, not every atheist talks like this.
No.
But nonetheless, you make good points that I actually agree with about the show.
No.
All right, George.
All right. Well, this show was, I don't know. I started watching it because you suggested it, and it definitely looked interesting. And by the time I watched the first, what was it, like 3 to 5 minutes of it or something, I was hooked.
Yeah,
like,
really?
It starts you off with just this fantastic scene.
Oh, the battlefield in
Yeah. And I was just like, wow, this is gonna have something good. And I I know, I think I brought this up before, but Umbrella Academy Season 2, it had a scene somewhat similar to that at the very start, and I had high hopes.
And it didn't go that way?
And it didn't go that way. But I still held on to those hopes for this one, and it definitely paid out.
Oh, yeah. Like the 9th and 10th episode, holy...
They were amazing.
Wow. Hits the landing, where Umbrella Academy Season 2 didn't, hit the landing. This show was like, oh, I did all of that work, and it succeeded.
Yes.
In what they were trying to do, and it works, and it's beautiful. And it makes me so interested to see what happens next.
Absolutely. So, within the first 5 minutes of this movie, I'm hooked. Or TV show, I should say.
It just feels like a movie.
It felt like a movie. It felt like a movie. There was so much in it. And each episode felt like a movie because each episode was so wholesome. There was just so much there. But yeah, within the first 5 minutes, I'm like, wow, this is good. And then, how it starts, they have to, this isn't spoiler at all because it's literally the first 5 minutes. They end up where the bus breaks down, and the white people are given a ride into town, whereas they have to go and walk. And they were at the back of the bus for this and everything. And it's him and this older lady who's also black. Atticus, that is, in case anybody was wondering. So they're walking into town, and I was just like, he mentions that he was reading this book. Something about him reading the book, I was like, wow, this guy is a serious intellectual. He knows his stuff. He's not just gonna be a stereotypical emotional, just person who is completely illogical. I'm actually looking forward to someone who thinks, even though they end up basically portraying just unbelievable racism in it, they actually portray the characters as logical. Whereas in everything else I've seen, when they portray racism, it's all emotional. Everything is emotional. They show emotion in here too, but they still think things through logically. It's not just entirely emotion, which I've never seen anybody else do that. And that was.
So what do you mean by they think things through logically? Are you talking about the black people or the white people or
the black people in this actually think it through logically. When we watched The Blood 5,
yeah,
it was all emotional.
Yeah, that's true.
Everything.
Yeah.
Nothing was logical in that.
Mm-hmm.
And so when I watched this and I saw him actually doing logical things, I'm like, finally, a good portrayal. There was a scene where basically, I believe it was second episode, was it? Where basically he had to get out of the county
and drive before the sunset.
Yeah, and you could tell the other people in the car were basically wanting to just go and beat up that sheriff, but he's like, no, we really got to get out of here. And he basically was like, you know what? I got to do whatever I got to do to get us out of here. So he did it, and he almost got them out of there, and then things just got crazy. But basically, he actually tried to do stuff logically in it.
He does that throughout the whole season, yeah.
Exactly.
He doesn't react to racism. He doesn't react to the situation.
Exactly.
He thinks well, yeah, okay, they are that, but how can I logically to do something that isn't affecting? It's not going to make it worse.
It's not just basically
That's very true.
He doesn't just be like, oh, you're going to be racist. Well, let me get into a fight with you.
Right.
That's not part of it.
It's more how can I get out of the situation? What would a regular human person do in this situation? That if people are being racist to me, my first thought isn't let's pick up a gun and have a shootout. Let me get the F out of here and find a way to just escape and run away.
Exactly.
Or something where I can protect my family or my friends.
It actually showed a realistic
approach
to someone experiencing it. Which,
right.
they never show that. They never show that. I've never seen
because
it
they're trying to
anywhere.
get an emotional reaction out of you.
Exactly, and so they never show it. And
Right.
this one, they actually showed it, and I was amazed. I was amazed. I absolutely loved it from the get-go because he actually was logical, and I love people that are logical. So,
Nice.
yeah, it was.
Sweet. So what's your, is that it? What's your final rating for the show?
I would say this show, things happen later on in the season that cause, I would say definitely, they bring up emotions in you in regards to racism that are extremely powerful. So if something like that sets you off, I would say don't watch this, because you're gonna get mad. It's just how it is. I honestly was like, wow, just some of the things they showed. I mean, once again, this is so over the top that, like,
It's geared toward a certain audience, and if,
oh, absolutely.
If what we're saying works with you, you'll really love it.
Yeah.
But it's not for, it's HBO,
No,
TVMA.
you really need to keep an open mind going into it, and like try to at certain points just try to remind yourself, like, hold on. I mean, just take a breather. This isn't real. This isn't what's going on,
And even though you're watching it, you don't actually know what's going on, even then.
Yeah, I was so
That's true.
lost. I had no clue what was going on.
Yeah, and I do think if you like this show, you will do, like, I did the homework, but I never looked up what Midsommar meant because I thought the movie was hot garbage.
That movie didn't need any explanation.
To me it did. I'm like, what is this called?
Well,
What's going on with these people?
It
what
was
what does this
interesting.
ending mean? Why is she suddenly, like, sacrificing her boyfriend who's sitting in a burning barn? I was just like, this is so... But I was like, I don't care. And I'm like, I'm over it. Like, I didn't care enough to, like, look into it. I still don't know what all of that meant because I just didn't like the movie, personally. So, like, this show, I'm telling you, like, it's going to have that same effect. But if it's not working for you, you won't look it up. If that makes sense.
Well, this had more of an effect for me, for sure. I mean, like, it brought out emotions I didn't think I had. Like, it was like, wow.
What do you mean by that?
Yeah.
Just the way racism was portrayed in it, like, it got me so mad.
The 9th episode, man. Oh.
In a way, somewhat like the Blood 5, where it was like, it just got me, I don't know, it got me upset.
About what?
About racism, about the way
But explain
things were
what
happening.
happened
Which
on...
specific
yeah.
scenes? Give an example.
I just remember the emotion it caused in me, and I was just like, sometimes you just have to take a step back and be like, what?
Oh, I did that with
real.
this show.
This isn't real.
Yeah.
I gotta calm myself down. I think I remember which episode it was now. I think it was the one where basically they end up with the ghosts in the basement.
Okay.
The skeletons.
They found skeletons, but then there were ghosts in the basement.
Okay.
That one. That was the one with, I think that was like really triggering for me. And I was just like, oh my gosh.
Yeah,
I got super angry because of like
what
how
they
they
were
were
doing
being
to the
treated.
cars.
And well, like, not so much like what they were doing to the cars, just the fact that like the people were out there doing that to them, and like
like you just thought it was wrong what they were
it was,
doing.
To drive
oh
them out
my
of the
gosh,
neighborhood.
yeah, and it was just like, wow.
Can I just say, I love this girl.
Which one?
The one from Full House.
The
She
sister?
is so good. She is so good in the show.
Oh, the main actress.
Yeah, I forgot. But, like, her response to things is so badass.
Absolutely.
Like, even more than the main character. Because the main character, like you said, is trying to be logical. But she's like, F this, I'm grabbing this gun, I'm taking... And then, and she just starts bashing in the headlights or whatever.
Yeah.
She's a badass character.
You like the emotional responses, and you like the logical responses.
Absolutely.
No, I just thought that was cool for a girl to do
I'm
that.
with you on the logical responses, because
No,
she paid for what she did.
She did.
Yeah, but again, I can see why she's going off emotion because she's upset, which is anybody in that situation probably would be upset. But I appreciated that she wasn't just some weak woman who just stood by. She takes charge.
The strength is nice.
Yeah, and I really appreciated that. So I agree with everything that you guys said. Actually, I think this is the first time we've done a big review where like we all kind of saw where the other person's coming from and
Yeah.
agreed, like, that's a good point.